Welcome back to another show. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well, and we have a little bit of a special episode today. In light of the world happenings and the coronavirus canceling essentially everything and taking us away from our gyms and maybe even our tracks and our frequently used exercise equipments and training partners and training groups, we all are finding ourselves in a little bit more minimal state of things. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. When we get into these states where we really have to pare training down to the bare essentials, it begs some questions, not of ourselves, not just in what we're doing. And I think we see you can't go anywhere these days on the internet or social media without seeing tons of body weight training and people working out in their living rooms. And it's great that people are moving, but I really, in my own time, I've really felt a strong need to get to the core of not only movement practices and training and which training is truly essential to the athlete I want to be, and as well just the many athletes and that I've been writing programs for and having to convert things to body weight and just looking at training in a little bit of a new light there, but also asking some of the greater questions and the whys of all this and I think some questions that reach into higher levels of sport, movement at large. And these are all really great things to talk about. I'm excited to have these discussions. And as a result, I think that when we go through these waves of contracting and expanding, and when we start expanding again and we start getting access to more equipment and bigger training environments and get back into training groups, I hope that we are able to take some things with us in this time. And so I have for this series, it's in two parts, and each show is going to have three coaches. For this show, we have Jeremy Frisch, Rob Assise, and Dr. Tommy John. Jeremy Frisch is the owner of Achieve Performance in Clinton, Massachusetts. He's been on this show several times and is a guy I absolutely love talking to, not just on youth training, but on any training topic. And Jeremy has an awesome ability to really take that kid in all of us and to extrapolate that out into training and sport and does so in a manner that's really practical and engaging. I love talking to Jeremy, and we'll be having him on today. Second is Rob Assise. Rob is a track coach at Homewood-Flossmoor High School, where he also teaches mathematics. Rob was the guest on episode 96 of this show, and I think on that show we were talking about some of the really cool stuff Rob's doing in terms of variability and reactivity in track and field training. And later on, Rob wrote a couple really cool articles on his experience with extreme isometrics and his results he got from that and part of that journey and its mental and physical elements. And so we're going to be touching on a little bit more of that today. Finally, we have Dr. Tommy John. Dr. Tommy John, also a multi-time guest on the show and recent co-host where we had Jeremy Frisch on. He's a chiropractor, author, and sports performance coach. Tommy has been not only a great guy to talk to in context of this show, but someone who I've learned a ton from in the last year. And he has an awesome message, not just in training, but also in regards to our own healing and well-being. So I'm thrilled to have Tommy back. And I'm excited to bring this show to you guys. I think it was an awesome conversation. And so let's get on to episode 196 of the Just Fly Performance Podcast. Here we go. Jeremy, good to talk to you, man. I feel like we talk about youth sports a lot, and what would happen, I think about what would happen if there was a big, just atomic bomb, so to speak, dropped on the youth sports industry and it had to kind of restart from the ashes. And on some level, maybe we're there, at least for the time being. But what do you think about all that stuff and with how kids are, I don't know, what's happening on the level of kids in play right now with all that?
Yeah, well, I think that you're stuck at home, you're stuck in your neighborhood. And even, you're not even allowed. I know, the kids are excited to be out of school, right? But you can't go anywhere. You can't go to anyone's house. You can't go go play with any kids, or not up close anyways. So as we were saying before, it's like, I think one of the things that kids are doing a lot of that I've seen, and my kids have been doing it, is riding bikes, because you're typically away from each other. You're not too close. You're not jumping and wrestling or anything like that. So I think that's one of those things that, we've talked about this before too. Things that kids used to do that don't do anymore. Mm-hmm. And this is one of them. And riding bikes is sort of like brought back from the ashes, which is nice to see. And the other thing, we've been playing a lot of wiffle ball, stick ball, any of those games. We took the dog out the other day, and one of my sons had a aluminum bat, and I had aluminum bat, and we were hitting a tennis ball back and forth down the street to each other while the dog ran in the middle. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
So typically he's at baseball practice, right? Or basketball practice. We even, I don't know if you've seen my video, but we moved we have a trampoline at our house, and we moved the basketball hoop over above the trampoline so the kids can throw down dunks and play different games inside the trampoline, which is pretty awesome too. So I know someone's going to get their hand or head or foot caught in the rim one of these days, but still, I'll take that chance.
Yeah, they're going to end up in one of those YouTube videos where like their leg gets caught and they're hanging upside down. Secondly,
yeah, I went out Saturday night, and my youngest son, he's 7. He was like just hanging on the rim after a dunk, thinking he's LeBron or something. It's pretty funny. So, but, it's keeping him busy and keeping him moving, and that's what we need right now for sure.
Yeah, and it's going back. It's taking kids out of organized sports for the time being and going back to the fundamentals of everything, the thing they probably should be doing more of right now anyways. And I like with the riding bikes too, it just makes me think about all the creativity that comes out when kids ride bikes too. You're finding different ways to go off curbs and
yep.
Get around, and there's even though it's a bike and that's not necessarily like running on the ground, there's so many like things that are happening that are really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of like those little skills that you don't even think about, like dynamic balance and being able to like lateral balance too. Like that's one of those ones, right? Like side to side, like you get good at, even like when you try to accelerate, you're like moving that bike like side to side while you're driving your feet into the ground. I always loved how that looked when you see like BMX guys racing and stuff. So, and then of course the first thing one of my kids did is pull out the ramp when they took their bike out. So everyone's riding down the little hill and trying to hit the ramp and jumping off the ramp. And obviously someone falls, right? And got to get up and scrape it off and stuff like that. So, but it's, I feel like, silver lining, I guess, some of the things that are happening because of what's happening out in the world, we're having to go back to do things that we did when we were kids, So it's exciting for, I guess, for them. It's still, not easy. Like my kids still have Chromebooks, and and they still want to go on there and spend a lot of time doing that stuff or playing PS4 and all that. But that's one of those things where we have to just deal with it and try to work around it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's definitely always going to be a little bit of a battle, especially this day and age. But I had seen someone else post that on social media. They said, well, for the first time in forever or whatnot, I saw kids playing like in the neighborhood or something like that. And
yeah, I mean, people, like even just so many people have walked through my neighborhood as well. You know what I mean? Just that I don't normally see, just out for walks and trying to get outside and not go stir crazy, inside their house. So there was like 2 ladies walking around on Friday night. They both had glasses of wine, just like walking through the streets. It was hysterical.
Jeremy, you had posted something about, and I'm not too familiar with this. It was something I'm assuming someone had a more formal like push-ups or like a get your sweat on for kids type training thing you had posted, and versus as we've been talking about, just kids playing and doing kids stuff, right? And so tell me a little bit about that, and so that type of mentality versus some of you mentioned what your kids are doing. I think you had a fun story too about your son who had to run up the stairs and touch the various like furniture in a room and come back. So tell me about a little contrast between that type of mentality and then what you're doing.
Sure. So I think, and it's not, I'm not trying to blame anyone, but I think like, probably some parents or adults think like, oh, I do this type of exercise is good for me. It's probably good for kids. And while moving is great for kids, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They don't really respond or really care or have like the maturity to understand what exercise really is. You know what I mean? They only know movement. They know games. They know things that engages them and makes them happy. Do you know what I mean? So I think that trying to force them to do exercise just because you do it, I should say an adult does it. It's obviously, movement is great, but there's better ways, and there's better ways to engage kids, and there's better ways to get them to love movement, rather than get them to force them to do exercise, So, and it's like every body weight program, it's like got to be burpees and, like, just like the idea is like to be out of breath. Well, if you want kids to be out of breath, go outside and play a game of tag or play a game of hide and seek or be, play a game of like a chase where like you have to run someone down, or play pickle. Those games, kids have fun. There's objective. There's a goal. You got to be safe or you're going to be out. There's things like that they totally grasp and understand. And so that's why I think those type of activities are so much better than just getting a kid to try to exercise. Obviously there's a point where a kid probably can exercise. Like I have a son that is he'll be 13 in a month, right? And the other day I was like, he didn't want to go outside and play with the younger kids. So I was like, dude, why don't you go downstairs and go get a workout in? So he went down and did like 30-second iso lunges, nice. Some medicine ball slams, and he did some kettlebell swings and things like that. So he's sort of making that transition. Whereas like my youngest son, he'll play in a trampoline, he'll run around, he'll ask me to make him an obstacle course, he'll want to wrestle. My daughter does gymnastics, so I brought home some gymnastics mats, and she does cartwheels and flips and things like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's where you got to try to find movements and exercise and activities that kids enjoy, and that will lead them to do more than a 30-minute sweat of body burn.
It's pretty sweat and body burn. Yeah,
you can find those videos like on demand and on Comcast, and it's like, that's not might be good for an adult, but not great for a kid.
Yeah, I feel like even for adults too. I think about the idea of having the first 5 or 10 minutes of something have some exploration and play to it. Even for an adult, I think that stuff is good. Even for someone who's not an athlete or wasn't even necessarily an athlete, it's just engaging. But I'd never heard I should have thought about this, but I've never heard anyone mention that spectrum of movement into exercising, or how, the mentality being different and how that paradigm can shift and through the ages. I know you've talked about similar things, but I've never heard you frame it quite that way, and it makes a lot of sense.
I think even we were doing some gymnastic stuff yesterday, and just like literally in our living room, because we have a gymnastics mat, and my wife walked in and she's like, "Oh, let me try a handstand." Like it just, you see one of us tries it and the other one tries it, then everyone's doing it. You know what I mean? So it's funny to see, like, we've talked about this before, like, my 2 older sons who are growing like weeds, they haven't they're more into sports now. So they probably haven't done like a forward roll or shoulder roll or some of those things in a while. And it's funny to sort of see how awkward they've gotten at them, because they used to, when they were younger, they would hit that stuff like it was nothing. And now they've grown quite a bit and they haven't practiced those things in a while. And like to see them try those things again, it's pretty funny, because it's almost like they have to relearn it. So we spent some time, just messing around, doing different shoulder rolls and, forward rolls and cartwheels and handstands, things like that yesterday. It was hysterical to watch.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, when my kids hit a growth spurt, I'll have to keep an eye on how some of those skills have to be relearned with the growing body. It's crazy.
Because you think like their center of gravity and their balance sort of gets thrown off a little bit. So it's probably a great idea to revisit those things as they get older.
Yeah, 100%. Last thing quickly before we finish this little session up here is, I know for you, so obviously being an adult and more in the training stage, you forwarded me this is definitely the epitome of training, is you forwarded me an Evo Plus or Jay Schrader workout, and you said hardest upper body workout ever. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was or what you've been doing, I guess, too, in this time?
Yeah. So anytime, I feel like anytime I go on vacation or I have to go somewhere and I'll be with limited equipment, it's like Evo Sport, workouts and those type of ideas are just like totally perfect, right? Yeah. Because it's minimal equipment and just brutally hard, and like just does the trick. And like in reality, like it basically trains everything you could ever need, right? And so I started scrolling through some of those workouts that I've had, and I found that one, and it was like, iso extreme push up, and then followed by like towel bench press for, I think it was like 20 or 25 reps, followed by like, curl to press with a towel. And I remember looking at it when I first got a hold of that workout and being like, oh, this is nothing. And it's like, you have to repeat that 12 times. And most people can't even hold a push up for a minute, but just that, that's enough for a lot of people just to try to get through 1 minute of good position. Right. but then follow it up with like that dynamic movement of like benching a towel and pressing a towel. I've never like I've never had like my shoulders and chest and biceps be so pumped up in my life. And that's always my go-to. Like my college kids, when they go on vacation, I'm like, do this workout while you're away, because I guarantee you won't even get through the whole thing.
Yeah. You said hardest upper body workout ever. And at first I was just thinking, oh, this doesn't seem so bad. And then I was like, whoa, yeah, you're saying 11 rounds, and that's, right? I did like 3 rounds basically of it the other day, and that was pretty good. I was like, that's good for now. I'm going to build myself up from here. So yeah, that stuff is awesome. That stuff is really awesome for times like this.
It's good. So my own, like I downstairs now, I have like, I have a couple kettlebells, and I have, my parallettes where I can like do those type of exercises. So lately I've been doing plenty of kettlebell swings with a lot of iso extremes, especially lunge. I've been doing I do have just a bar with like 5, 10, 15 pounds. And I've been doing a lot of like Zercher. Stole this from Tommy John. Zercher, like isometrics, isometric lunges. Yeah, my knee's been a junk for like the last year. And like, that's one of those exercises that just makes my legs and my knee feel good. So I've been doing a lot of that. I'll pair those together. So I'll do maybe like 30 seconds Zercher iso lunge with the right leg, and then I'll switch to the left, and then I'll follow that up with something dynamic, like maybe 15, 20 kettlebell swings, something like that. Do 5 rounds. I mean, you're working, you're working hard. Then upper body, similar. Someone gave me one of those old like chin up dip things, like rigs there. You can do chin ups and dips on them. So I'm always huge with chin ups. I'll do, every time I train, I'll try to do 40 or 50 chin-ups in different variations and different hand grips, or hang. I like to hang too. And I'm a huge fan of dips. And so especially like iso extreme dips, probably one of the hardest things you can do, trying to hold your entire body weight in a deep, all the way down to that position. So I'll do like a lot of, because I feel like it's very difficult to like hold for a long duration on the dip. So I'll do like very short, like maybe 10-second holds and come up, and I'll do that for like 3 in a row. So 3 10-second holds for, last 30 seconds. And, something like that would really, I feel like I trains me at my strength, a little bit of endurance. I got that pump that you're looking for, kind of gets everything I need. Yeah,
that stuff. That's definitely a go-to. I've been using it a lot for my actual, in smaller volumes. I've been using it on my recovery days. Like I said, like 3 rounds, or doing some, like you've talked about, like the lunges with the rebound, the little dumbbell rebounds, and trying to use that on my off days and smaller volumes, just to kind of get myself. It's just fast too. It's efficient with the rest of your day, and it's real easy. And
it really is. Yep. And I like to move. Like I like to move from one exercise to the other. You know what I mean? So whether I'm bouncing back and forth between lunges and like swings, or like chin ups and dips, or or I'll do all 4. Like I'll do like lunges, swings, then dips, and then chin ups. You know what I mean? I'll just kind of bounce, and I'm not trying to fly, right? I'm not trying to like go as fast as I can, like a death circuit. I'll do one, and it's hard, and I catch my breath, and then I'll move on to the next, and I'll do something else. You know what I mean? And I'll just slowly work through that circuit 4 or 5 times. And, after 4 or 5 rounds, you're pretty smoked, tired. It maybe takes half hour, 40 minutes, and I get on with my day,
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at these days. Then I can go play some hoops, or if I want to do some moving around, I'll go play with my kids and make up some silly game,
Yeah, you get your So you're really sectioning out the training and the movement. So you're training, and then you're going and moving outside of that and having fun.
If I'm going to train, I feel like I got to be by myself, and I really need to just like work hard and like and not like. And then if I'm going to go play or do something else, I go off and do that. It's kind of more recreational for me. Like we've been doing too, like a lot of woods around here. So a lot of hikes and, different trails to walk down and rocks to climb and things like that. So my 7-year-old just like, he sees a rock, he has to climb it. So we do a lot of that stuff too.
That's awesome. Well, really cool. It was great talking to you about all that stuff today. And it's, it's just fun to see again, how training, when we're in a small environment, it really is just a mirror of, I think, everything else that we do, or the way we see it. So it's been good chatting today, Jeremy.
All right, man. Great to talk to you.
I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share with you a little bit about what our sponsor, simplyfaster.com, now has available in their store. You hear me mention in the outro of the show all the time about the free lap timing system in the K-Box, which I have and use regularly. But today I wanted to share a little bit more about the bar speed monitoring units that Simply Faster has, which is the GymAware and the new portable Flex unit. So let me start with the GymAware. I mention it regularly on the show. It's been referred to as the Cadillac of bar speed monitors. Carl Valley calls it a lab inside a lunchbox, as the readings you get out of the GymAware go well beyond typical concentric or just the up phase of the lift velocities. Rather, you can measure the entire shape of the barbell lift in terms of eccentric velocity, range of motion, and total work done. Total work being awesome, by the way, especially like comparing a long-armed bench presser or a 6'10 squatter versus a 5'11 point guard. So you're getting all these extra metrics that you're not getting on other units. It's perfect for teams wanting to manage the weight room, and the data synchronizes to software platforms such as Coach Me Plus, Team Builder, and Athlete Monitoring. So new to the store is the Flex, which is the ultra-portable and lower-price travel version of the coach's favorite GymAware. So just like the GymAware, the Flex measures the shape of each rep, range of motion, total work done, eccentric dynamics. So for this and the GymAware, this is the advantage that a force plate would have over just knowing how high you jumped. You're getting many other metrics and information that go into this unit of work. Compared to similar portable bar speed monitors, this unit gets the entire rep rather than a fraction. So you have here two awesome tools, and if you're interested in upping your game in the velocity-based training and bar speed world, I would definitely recommend heading to the store at simplyfaster.com and checking into these two units. All right, let's get back to the show. Rob, you're a man who I feel like your workout routine has perhaps been a little less impacted than a lot of people based off of the 5-minute lunge things that you were doing a year ago. But could you tell us a little bit about what does your workout look like right now for you with your daily schedule?
Yeah, so my big thing was just to try having more time, just trying to get to the big basics for me. So that has been the iso lunge. I'm in a process of accumulating 20 minutes a day in that position, 10 on each leg. I'm trying to hang from a bar, just dead hang, or like an extreme iso pull up for 5 to 10 minutes every day. And then I've been doing Dr. Tommy John's spinal hygiene routine pretty regularly. I just mix that in throughout the course of the day. And then I just go for walks. And that's basically what I've been doing. I'm going to probably do that for 3 weeks here because that's the time that we'll be off for school. Right now, we'll see what happens going back, but then I'll probably progress into something else moving forward.
Yeah, the simplicity of that is something that I think is important as we all have made adjustments. But for you, it wasn't really that much different necessarily, because I think before all this, you were doing something pretty similar, right?
Right. Yeah, and there's more variety to it for sure, and I try to be just intuitive with it. The accumulating 20 minutes for me, that was just more of a new challenge for me, just to see what I figured it was a good time to try something different and see what the outcomes of that would be, which have been somewhat similar to what I was getting when I was lunging twice a day. So it's been kind of cool to see the results of that just about a week and a half into that now.
Yeah. So I know you wrote an article on this last year that was extremely popular, but just working up to a 5-minute iso lunge and just trying to go as long as you could. Because my thoughts are always, I like the 80-20 principle. Like, if 20% of the work gets you 80% of the results, or my thought process was always, well, what do you get in the last 2 or 3 minutes of that 5-minute iso lunge that you can't get in 2? And so as you went through that in getting a 5-minute iso lunge, tell us about, well, first how you progress, like what your time was like starting and then up through finishing. And then what sort of changes did you notice as you started to get better at it?
Yeah. The first session, I was at about like a minute 20. And I felt like it was the hardest thing I ever did, just to get to a minute 20. But the cool thing with it for me was I was able to improve. I was pretty consistent with it. At that time, I was probably doing it maybe 5 times a week. And I was able to improve pretty quickly. But then I definitely plateaued, and I was probably, anywhere getting between 3 to 3.5 minutes, I think. And I really wasn't doing anything to kind of push that forward. And then I finally decided, through our mutual friend, to give it a go, and to do it twice a day and see what would happen. That definitely put me over the edge, where I think a week into that, doing it like 11 times a week, I was able to get to the 5 minutes. So it was definitely a battle. And it was, it was basically me just kind of being a wimp about it for about 7 months, just not really trying to get to the 5 minutes, or doing something about it. But then, when I finally committed to it, I was able to. In terms of like what you get from that last, like the 3 to 5, I think there's obviously benefits going under 3 minutes, but if you've talked with like Dr. Mark Wetzel, where he talks about like that cycling of energy systems, I felt like I could feel that, like when I would be really struggling in like the last minute and a half, just to try to contract harder. And I was able to hold it longer. It's just one of those things where you got to kind of try it and see. But for me, it was just more of there was obviously the physical challenge, but it was also just something that was really mentally demanding. And I think that was probably the biggest benefit for me. Like, I hated doing it while I was doing it, but then afterwards, I just felt like completely at peace. And, I've always, leading up to trying to go into a session where, you're going to try to push yourself fully, was a challenge, but I never regretted doing it afterwards,
Yeah. So what, in terms of, and the mental resiliency for the last few minutes is, I the way I see it, I think Tommy said this as well, but if you can get 4 minutes, you can get 5 minutes. And it really is. And I think that maybe it's something to do with the energy system cycle and things like that. But my thought, and this is where I think I was afraid to go all in the sense that, because personally, this is just me, but I was a little skeptical of in terms of adaptations to like speed and power, I think, or preserving or anything like that. And the thing that I'm going to be doing actually here soon, I finally have all my equipment for this, but I got a Moxie monitor, and I want to see how blood oxygen is impacted throughout the course of this, which to me, that'll be fascinating stuff, So anyways, that being said, what, you were playing, like, I think you play pickup basketball or anything like that. Like, what did you notice anything from, and like, did movements feel more effortless? Did you have more endurance on the court? Any jumping or sprinting, things that you noticed? What are we, in terms of any sort of global transfer, what were some things that you were noticing?
Yeah. The biggest one for me doing the old man basketball was like, I just didn't get tired. It was bizarre where I wouldn't say it's not the most competitive old man basketball, and I'm one of the younger guys. But it was like to a point where, I felt like I could just sprint like almost the whole time. And it was, I just flat out like did not get tired. In terms of like my ability to sprint or jump, I don't know if I noticed much of a difference. I'll be perfectly honest there. But I also, I wasn't doing sprint workouts at the time. And like jumping on the court, I don't know if it was like easier to jump or it wasn't, that part of it wasn't noticeable. It was more of just the overall like endurance factor, like just not being able to go as hard as I could pretty much the whole game, for the most part. So that was the big one for me.
Yeah.
So maybe a speed endurance component to it for sure.
Cool. That gets me thinking. And I was kind of trying to connect these dots because I'm starting to do a lot more of the Jay Schrader training methods now. Which is a blessing, because I think it's an easily misunderstood system, or just maybe I just think people don't get into it and experiment with it enough and try to make it their own enough, too. I think that's important too. And obviously Jay Schrader being the one who invented all this in the first place. And I was listening to a podcast he did with Ben Greenfield recently, and amongst the stories of all this, like especially with the extreme isos and obviously things like the ARP wave are being used too, and that using that's potential to eliminate muscle compensations. But it's the big stories you hear are like the endurance stories, like the marathoner or half marathoner who basically just did the lunges 11 times a week or something like that and ran once a week at high pace, at race pace. And, there was a story on the Ben Greenfield podcast about a swimmer where they basically did something like that. I think they were doing the ARP wave and then going and swimming fast and going back and forth. But it does seem to be the endurance stories. And I've also had similar. The guy, I think it was Michael Tankovich, who is works for the Seahawks, and he had told me that there was one of Jay's guys was up there, and his like repeat sprint ability was incredible, something to that tune. And so, but I guess that player had only done extreme isos for 3 weeks, and Jay said he was okay on that, needed to do something else. I anyway. So bottom line is, I feel like there's something to that, and the repeatability, and for what it's worth, and a base or how long. These are the questions I ask, so it's something that I'm interested in talking to you about.
Yeah, and the big thing, the like first phase of it, from what I've heard, is just establishing sort of, I don't like the word base, but establishing the base through the holds and making sure that you're able to get in proper position. But there's maybe the explosive part, which I've done some of the lunge derivatives and things like that. There's plenty of that within that system too. And those things are fun for me. I mean, I've done drops and rebounds, and I'll, jump into a lunge. And those are definitely break up the monotony, for sure. So once this 3-week cycle's over for me, I think I'll probably go into, some stuff that are a little bit more explosive type base, to it. But, it's definitely, I've listened to that Greenfield podcast as well, and it's pretty interesting. The swimming one was the one that I found the most interesting, where just that ability to maintain position at high velocity. Yeah, is really kind of what it all comes down to.
Yeah, I think Jay said muscles to be like eccentrically oriented with the muscles or something like that, which actually gets me thinking of the Darren Barr and gravity, and talking about falling, and it's almost like you're letting muscles you work eccentrically. I think it's a similar. It just depends on your side of the vernacular, because I think some people get the wrong impression when they hear the word falling or yielding. But I think that it is. I think it comes from a mutual place. So yeah, no, that was a real interesting show, and I think that. Well, I was just thinking, if whoever gets quarantined, like we're still allowed to go on and walks and essential business, but I think anyone who's an endurance athlete and ends up like being like locked in their room, wherever you are in the world, should probably do lunges 11 times or whatever, and then go make sure you do a run right before they lock you off. I guess obviously keeping your social distance and all that, and then time yourself, and then go and do the thing, the 11 lunges a week, and then go back and time it again. And it'd be interesting to see what, or maybe, push-ups, ISO push-up too, maybe if you're a swimmer or something, I don't know. It'd be cool to see how that was able to help people maintain. I think it'd be a good grounds for a little experiment there. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that would be the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, well, very cool. I was going to say too, I'm planning on doing some of the rebounding stuff, like a smaller dose. My adaptation is on my recovery days doing like not as long, but a lot of the reboundy and like the balance lunges and that type of stuff. And so I'm excited for it. It's a good chance to learn more about myself and a little bit of neurology and how the body works in those conditions. So,
yeah, it's always fun to do like the drops and rebounds, because you're catching a falling weight, like things just turn on at the right time, so for a lot of them, it's sort of hard to mess up if you have a good base in the position, like your body, your muscles will turn on the way that they're supposed to, which is a good thing. Yeah. Which has been good for our athletes too, in giving things for them to do, because they can do shoulder rebounds and bicep rebounds, because they have like a paper towel roll that they can catch, and things like that. So
yeah,
pretty good stuff.
Yeah, right on. I think this will be a time where we can learn a lot of new things about the body in a little more minimal environment. So thanks for your time today, Rob. It's good talking.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a quick note too, in the aftermath of that show with Rob had mentioned that when he unloaded from those extreme isometrics, like a week or so of an unload, he noticed a significant boost in his sprinting speed and vertical jump. So that was one thing that we didn't hit on the show, but I did want to mention because I think it's important. So now that you know that, let's get on to the next segment with Dr. Tommy John. So bodyweight training, Tommy. I suppose not a lot of your workout program has changed, huh? Pretty same old in a lot of ways.
That's the thing. Considering the circumstances, everyone has asked me. They're like, "Why aren't you posting workouts like now, like in-home workouts?" Everyone's posting. I'm like the last 8 years of my videos are those. Like I've been literally like, how has your training changed, or how has your training that you're approaching changed? How has your lifestyle changed? Everything is almost exactly the same. I'm just trying to dodge the hysteria bullets more. Like that's it. That's a little more conditioning where I'm trying to dodge those bullets. But yeah, the training has stayed exactly the same. It's almost like I'm thankfully able to still be open. The chiropractic portion of my practice is still open. There's a little caution there. As far as symptoms, nobody coming in with symptoms, wipe down the equipment, keep the numbers super low, appointment only. Like there's certain things I'll follow, but other than that, I honestly, dude, I'm walking more. I logged 40 miles in 2 days on the beach. Now, when I walk, okay, and this is why I push. Well, I'm a big fan of walking for many reasons, but one of the things, like when I get fatigued, it's glutes. Fine, like glutes. It's almost like sprint fatigue. Like sprint, I'll get hamstring. But like walking, I'll get glutes. When I used to jog, it was like quads and knees, right? It was just like quads, knees. And I could go into technique and all that other stuff. Maybe I could alter it. But with sprinting, my hamstrings would be on fire, like in a good fire way, like training way, right? Walking, glutes and anterior tibialis, right? So I walked so much because of this new thing. I'm done earlier in the day. Like I'm done kind of 3:30. So I just get out and I'll go walk, keeping my social distance and everything else, but I'll log miles. Dude, my left anterior tib is so flipping sore. It's on the verge. It's not injured. I would not call it injury, but it was just like I went from logging these good, decent miles to like, oh my God. And now it's just, I'm having to now up my training even more because I found a leak in my piping. I found a leak in my system, an energy leak coming out of my left anterior tib. So I've got some things to address, but I thought it was interesting. My training has not changed much, but my miles in walking have, and I'm feeling it. And I feel it glutes and anterior tib when I start logging, like getting after it miles. So
I think yeah, hell yeah. I think the reasons that you like walking and that long walks are good is it should go without saying, but do you care to expand upon that just a little bit and some of the benefits you see?
Yeah. So I feel the creative side of me comes out, and as you know, we're all artists, right? Whether it's programming or bringing in information in a creative way to create it into a digestible manner for our audience, right? Like I just get these ideas on things that I could do, or podcast ideas, and it doesn't, if I'm sitting in my apartment just staring off, it doesn't happen. But as soon as I start walking, it's just like, whoom. So from a creative standpoint, I know that research has showed that. Another reason, it boosts parasympathetic activity. Like it boosts the regenerating, the calming, the repair. And I think we all need that, whether we're sympathetic dominant, admittedly, consciously, or just anytime we're just hanging out. Now, I don't know how we even exist with anybody and you're not taking on their baggage, their energetic baggage, right? So any chance we get to offer, whether it's however you're going to do that in boosting parasympathetic response, I'll do that, because when I'm done with these long walks, it's almost like at the end of a long meditation, or at the end, like I'm just like middle, boom, like just stable across the board. Almost just like, if you want to screw with me, that's the time to screw with me, because I'm not going to do anything. I'll literally be tolerant so much more. Like, all right, cool. Like almost a drug-induced state that I haven't been at in 25 years or something like that. But or 20 years. But yeah. And then there's also besides the parasympathetic boost and just that healing response. I love exploration. Like I think there's that part of the child still inside me, obviously, where you try to barricade a kid in the kitchen. Right. And they will do everything, or they're in the cupboard pulling out pans. They're just exploring, constant stimulus. And I love walking because it's an ever-changing environment. It's outside. Nothing's the same. Like everything is almost like new. And it's like, but you've lived in that place for 5 years. You've done that walk or you've done that path. I know, but there's different people. There's different growth of flowers. There's different shade of light. There's different smells. There's different feel. There's different temperature. Like everything. My experience is completely different when you focus on the smaller details of those walks. And it's almost like a movie, like it's just like these images just passing in front of me. And I can't get enough of them that I almost have to watch out where I'm going, because I'll get so far away and I'll forget that I got to go back. And I'll literally contemplate Uber. And I'm like, no, you little bitch. Like, you can't do Uber, man. You stand for this whole thing. Like, stop. Just take a nap or something, but don't call Uber. But I do get so far away from my house sometimes that it takes me so long to get back. And then another thing, when you walk, you pump your sacrum. Sacrum pumps, helps that cerebrospinal fluid flush, which according to some takes 12 hours to totally create a cycle or whatever. Through respiration and walking, I love both of them. So I'll breathe nasally as I walk, which kind of adds to that parasympathetic response. And damn, dude, I'm a big I'm trying not to check the box kind of guy, this. And so when I do walk, I'm very intentful when I do walk. Like I'm connecting with why I'm walking. I'm connecting with ideas. I'm connecting with my body. And I can literally see and feel that fluid. Like I try to picture it, you know what I mean? Like as a positive flow and it going up and just bathing my brain and sweeping out whatever doesn't need to be there and putting it back out, sending it out into the lymph, and it's coming out and it's coming out my skin, or it's just that's my picture, oddly to say. I don't know if anybody else pictures that or experiences that, but when I go on those walks, that is something, those are the things that I kind of, the reasons I keep them in my life, and I'm trying to promote them as much as possible to all clientele of any age. Our first year, this with kids, and we all went through this, right? Our first year or 15 months everything is geared around moving towards this one single goal. What's that? To stand and walk. So because it took that long, and that was like our mantra for like these crazy amount of time of our life, damn, it must be important. That's something that I respect very much of the human capacity, is the ability to walk. And then if you can walk real well, I think you can run. And if you can run real well, you should be able to play. Like it's almost like a foundational athletic bottom of the pyramid type move. Like be able to walk real well. We always like look at gait or cross crawl patterning, right? Like what better representation of that than walking? And you've seen this. I don't know if you observe your athletes. When I'll observe them and I watch them walk in from their car, not a lot of them walk well. Like they don't like flow. You know what I mean? It's almost, and it's not even like a pimp, like a pimp skip or limp or whatever they're called, the pimp limp, or I don't even know, like, whatever it's called. You know what I mean? Like where there's a little rhythm to it, and it's like, all right, that's just his. He kind of made her. That's hers. They're just like all awkward, and they don't know how. And then you go ahead and put them into a cross crawl test, or have to have them sync it up when they're tired, or load them, or stimulate them in some way through training, and they just like discombobulated. They just like fall apart. Have you ever seen Zion Williamson walk?
I haven't paid it, maybe, but I haven't paid attention to it.
It's so I only know because who was it? Whoever was working for Stack was writing for Stack. Damn it, I don't know his name.
Brandon Hall?
Yeah. And I apologize so badly for forgetting his name. He's no longer with Stack, but we were talking about the Zion Williamson injury, the knee, and we were talking about stuff, and he had brought up. I didn't know this, but he had brought up how you watch him walk, and it's real and then somebody made, like, somebody's posting those videos that go viral where they imitate the different players.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy, and he's like, the way he walks, it's hilarious. I'm like, oh my God. And then I go back and try to watch Zion Williamson walk. And I guess that's one of the things they're working with whoever he's training with. Maybe someplace in California, right?
I don't know. I heard that they were trying to retool his like gait and stuff like that.
Right.
So, and I was trying to figure out what they were doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was like, I wonder what they're doing.
Right. It's kind of cool, right? It makes you think. I think they even mentioned in Baxter Holmes' article about how the pediatric ACL surgery is on the increase because of the butchering of the youth sports system in youth basketball. And he was talking a lot about that. And they said Zion Williamson might be a product of the American system. And if he wasn't such a freak, he wouldn't have survived so long. You know, the guy's a freak. I mean, he's just a freak in all sense of the word. And they had to throw out their old model to try to train because he doesn't rehab normally. He doesn't train normally. How there's any model for anybody, because all humans should be unique, right? Like we should all kind of look at them in a unique manner, I think. But yeah, they analyzed his gait and were trying to fix some things. And I was like, what is his gait? And then you go look and try to find videos of him walking. It's very, very interesting. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. But again, coming back to a human being should be able to walk.
Yes. Yeah. I
very well.
As you were talking, a couple of things were kind of hitting me. One was, I think more world leaders should make decisions in the midst of like everyone's got to start walking on the beach. And after like 3 or 4 miles in, then they can start talking. And then
how about that, right? Before like UN meetings or before these big gatherings.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. I was also thinking too. I've been really thinking about the idea of, and I think it's important for coaches, especially, or anybody, but in coaching to have a creative practice, because I think we so often don't. And there's a lot of different ways of having that. Something I've been trying to do more is inspired by Paul Cater is more like art. Like my daughter draws with watercolors, so I'm trying to draw with her and stuff like that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. But I also just before I was married, like 8 years ago, I was doing the long walks too. I remember I probably walked about 6 miles one way and 6 miles the other one day, and just listened to an audiobook, and it was awesome. That's and you're right. There's something to that. That's it's almost like in our genes, like the ability for humans to walk long distances, because I think that's one thing we're really good at it.
Yeah. Wait, what did you say? Oh, and something about the creative. You sparked something else. Dr. Kelly Brogan, she wrote Own Yourself. She's a holistic psychiatrist. She made an interesting comment. I don't know if I talked to you about it when you visited or if it was on one of our other talks that were recorded. But she says the artist, like the creative side of us, the artist side of us is the element that truly heals us. That is the head of our ability to heal. And she goes, the reason being, the artist sees no limits. The artist sees no plan. The artist sees it's just this open, what is possible in this whole thing. And that's where we kind of got to go, whether it's performance or healing, right? And I that stuck with me so much, because I'm just like, wow. And even those people that'll say, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, everybody is to an extent. You know what I mean? You said it, right? Like there might be some people like, I can't program for shit, but still it's almost like we're being too hard on ourselves because we don't come up with but it's probably better than what you think it is. Do you know what I mean? And is the artist, it's like that perfect side of you, which I have. Like when I draw, I've done 3 drawings in my life, charcoal drawings, but they take like 25 hours. And, one of a bowl of fruit in high school, one of an ex-girlfriend, and one of my late brother. And there's the 2 sides of me. The artist side just gets into it. And I like come back away after 4 hours down on the page. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, hell yeah. All right. I walk away. Then there's this side of me that's the analytical side that in the middle of the night, I open my eyes and wake up and I'm like, his right eye is not exact. And I'll go into the kitchen and erase his right eye. And I'm like, oh, my God, what's wrong with you? And those two don't get along. You know what I mean? So I feel like we all have battles in varying degrees where sometimes the analytical is this big brawny beast and the artist is a tiny person, or, the artist is the beast and the analytical. So I think it's this nice harmonious relationship where we all have that expression inside us. If it's that like boundless, right? color within the lines. What lines? Or the path, somebody chooses the hard path or the easy path, and somebody says, you're assuming I see a path. Like, nah, I don't know who said that or whatever, but that always stood out. I was like, that's pretty badass,
Yeah, I speak to the creativity too, and I couldn't agree more. I think that creativity it's almost, I look at the way that I think a lot of coaching, especially on like the organizational level, is driven. It's data and it's evidence based.
Yes.
I think there's nothing wrong with wrong with research, but I think if everything has to be that analytical, and you aren't putting a priority on the ability to create and to intuit and to read a situation artistically, I think that's a problem. And so I definitely, I think I'll admit it, my brain is biased more towards creativity with analyticals as necessary. That's just my bias for the most part.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And not that I don't like going through research for various purposes, but
sure.
I hear you. I would like to, I was going to ask you though, in nature, right? Like, I feel like and this with the current training situation for a lot of people, myself included, I view it as a huge blessing. Like, just the inherent creativity that comes with finding out or figuring out how to train in your environment. And it's like, here you have some trees, or you got these rocks or this hill. Okay, go figure something out. And that time to me has always been far more rewarding than figuring out a scheme in the gym, where it's like you have the same equipment every day. Here's some barbells. Right. Here's a track. Find a periodization scheme, and I like that too. Like, and it's cool to find a real good one. Like, oh yes, this was awesome. But that inherent artist side of you, that inner artistic animal loves it's the Rocky. It's the Rocky training. Yeah. It's here's some pieces of your environment, and now figure it out. And I really enjoy that. And I know you've always talked about like nature as your gym and things like that as well.
I go we always refer back to this, and we love. He's awesome. But Jeremy Frisch will say, there's a rock in the middle of the field, and he won't cue the kids at all. It's like, just show them the rock, and they just end up turning it into an obstacle, and they show 16 different ways of leaping it, right, and landing 16 different ways, and it's like, there you go. So it's almost like, I feel like we connect to a deeper level. Now I love both, right? Like you said, but I love connecting the reason behind both, your intention behind both. So if we got creative and yourself was the apparatus, or you really had to figure out how to control your body around an awkwardly shaped, unstable or slippery or cold, or I can't grip well, it's not ergonomically sound, which drives me up a wall. Like, you're the ergonomics, you figure it out. You know what I mean? If something's simple, like, it's going to do the work for us. Like, we should struggle a little more and then use what we learned there when we bring it back to bars and levers and pulleys in a gym, in a fixed setting. And then whatever's going on there, we apply when we can get creative. I feel like there's a blend. There's an absolute healthy blend that we could all use as coaches or therapists or doctors or whoever's out there. And the challenge is trying to connect it all. And that's why I keep saying these boxes. Like, we don't check boxes. I trained outside. I trained inside. Was it fun outside? Yeah, they had fun. Okay, but like, why'd you do it though? You know what I mean? I always ask that question, like, why the hell am I doing this? And somebody will literally be like, TJ, are you done with your sets when I'm training inside? Yeah, why? Why are you done? Because I became disinterested. And they just laugh every time I use that answer. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, I lost my want to do it. Like, I'm not doing it just to do it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, but you're training, check. But you're doing hip flexor stretch, check. Why am I not amazing? Or why am I not healed? Or why am I not successful? I did all these things that all these superstars do. What the hell? No, I got disinterested. It doesn't mean I devalue it or I'm disrespecting it. I'm not there right now. And then I may get interested later on. Now, I have the freedom as an adult who runs a practice where I'm not competing anymore except myself and life and anything life brings me. But even as a baseball player, it's like, okay, or as a competitive basketball player, whatever I was doing, why am I doing this? That's right. I wanted to hit an opposite field home run, or I wanted to shoot a free throw without leaving my feet. you know, when I was first getting into it, right? Like shooting a free throw without jumping was like the biggest graduating step of like anything. Like, no way, I just shot a free throw without jumping. Or to dunk or to do something, right? Like whatever it is, that why, like that reasoning has to tie it all together. So whatever our reason is outside, like whatever's going on, why are we doing this? Oh, hell yeah. And then bottom line, sometimes because it's just effing fun. do you know what I mean? Like, that's it, because it's fun. And then we got all these benefits afterwards, and it was fun. But I said, because I got corrected on a podcast, I was with Lori Bischoff, and we're talking Shift podcast, and she was talking about training, and she loved how I spoke about training. And then I kind of said, like, training's not really fun, nor should it be. But I had to like say, because it's like the definition of training, right? We don't really know what that means anymore, because so many people do so many things. It's like, what is training really? Like, we don't know. But it depends like what you're trying to talk about. So I just said training has to be stimulating enough and upsetting enough to change you, you know? And if it's not, then you're not being changed, and being changed is uncomfortable. And she's like, yeah, well, I'd like to go a step further and be like, you know, I really love biking and I love, you know, jogging. And I just think that sometimes doing things you love is great training. And I was like, I was trying to just say, well, those are like things that you do as an expression of your training but if you tried to bike or jog, you know, as a healing apparatus or to continue on, and then sometimes at some point you're going to not be able to do that, well, then what do? Train. Do you know? That's what I think training is. It's whatever the things are that provide for those more complex skills, whether it's running, jumping, shooting, throwing, biking, climbing, you know, it's those more advanced things that are fun. There are things I love to do that are fun, but the training is the stuff I do that allow me to have a good time, you know?
Yeah, that makes good sense. I was just talking with Jeremy. Jeremy will be on this little mini series or segments as well, talking about that spectrum where children love to play. For children, it's all play. And then once you get to age 11, 12, 13, you know, whatever you're ready, that meter can start to go into training. And it's interesting to define that, right? Because I mean, I agree. Part of me with the, you know, what's the intention behind this? I see people posting the endless living room workouts, and I'm like, are you having fun? Like, is this enjoyable for you? I mean, if your outcome is to just straight up get jacked and you want to do, you know, 200, 300 push-ups, and I could see some intention behind that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're really motivated to do that, but if it's just to sweat and stay in shape, like, I don't know, there's got to be more fun things than just doing this, like, on a level. I don't know. There's just got to be something more than that. So
it's like tired. It's like, I just want to get tired because somehow tired means effective. It's like, really? Like, what if you ran in a circle, though? Like, just really fast in a circle.
So my kids do in the living room. We put
like dogs chase their tails, right?
Yeah. We put a box in my living room, and it's like, my living room is probably like, you know, maybe 14 by 14 or something. And
totally.
and they, or maybe it's less than that, the space they actually get to run. It's probably like 10 by 10 where they actually get to run, or less, and they can get full speed almost around that thing. You know, they're like 1 and 3, so good for them. I can't do that.
Fantastic.
So anyways, that's awesome, man. Well, hey, I hate to cut it short, but we got this is being just a small segment. I mean, shoot, at this rate we can just keep talking. Well, let's make it a whole podcast. But no, hey, it's always good catching up with you about this stuff, Tommy. It's always a great dose of just reality with this thing we call training and everything that goes behind it. So it's always good, man.
Well, I love it, and I respect our ability to move. That's all I'm trying to do is just get people moving again, often, frequent, a lot. Done. Thanks, Joel.
Yeah,
got it, buddy.
That does it for another episode. Thanks for being here with us. Those were 3 awesome talks with 3 great coaches, and we have 3 more coming at you for next week. As always, if you enjoy the show and what we're doing, you can really support us by leaving us a rating or review on iTunes or Stitcher. Whatever you're listening to the show on, you can help our message by clicking that 5-star button and leaving a review. Also, don't forget to visit our sponsor, simplyfaster.com, suppliers of high-end training technology, not just to teams and organizations, but also for the individual. If you're just looking to have something to measure your sprint speed, they have free lap timing systems for the individual athlete, and a whole lot of really cool training tools that are at a great price with great customer service. So be sure to check them out and support them. They have been a longtime sponsor for us. Okay, we'll get to episode 197. I'm excited to get to that next week, and we'll see you all then. Have a good one.